Hey guys, Wes here with a review of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. Now, it's certainly no coincidence that the game came out during the big hype for the movie and comic series, but regardless, it stands alone as a fun game and a great tribute to old-school side-scrolling beat-em-ups like Double Dragon, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, etc. In case you're unfamiliar with the story, our hero, Scott Pilgrim, is in love with Ramona Flowers, but he has to defeat her 7 evil exes in order to win her over. And one thing is for sure, they certainly won't make it easy. The levels and boss fights can be pretty lengthy and very challenging, especially on harder difficulties, making the game pretty frustrating if you don't like getting your ass kicked occasionally. If you've read the comics or seen the movie, you will certainly have a better appreciation for the game and its story, but if not, it's still a game that any nerd can love. The gameplay is pretty straightforward like any other beat-em-up, using typical punching, kicking, blocking, and throwing moves and combos that usually work pretty smoothly until you fall down a pit, or you can't line yourself up to hit an enemy, or you can't find your character amongst a mass group of enemies. These control issues can be frustrating, especially when playing with 4 people, but they don't take away from the experience because, well, beating the crap out of everyone in Toronto is always fun. A nice touch to the gameplay is the fact that you can level up to learn new combos, and you can buy power-ups and items in stores, much like you can in Double Dragon. Complementing the gameplay, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World has a beautiful 8-bit style and catchy chiptune soundtrack by Anamanaguchi that add a wonderful sense of nostalgia and remind me of everything I loved about old-school video games, especially when I see references to Zelda, Street Fighter, Final Fantasy, and Super Mario Bros. 3. Reliving my childhood, it brings a tear to my eye. If you were planning on playing the game with your friends, you'd better make sure that they're on the couch next to you because while there is a co-op mode, it's not available online, which is a little bit of a bummer. However, playing the game with friends is still always fun, and can certainly make the game more challenging, getting swamped with enemies and rushing to revive your fallen buddies. Extra modes like Survival Horror and Boss Rush also make the game worth coming back to with all your nerd friends. It's definitely the game that every old school gamer has been waiting for. So, with all that in mind, let's break the game down. The story stays true to the comic book series, and even though it isn't a huge part of the game, it will definitely keep you happy and interested. Story gets an 8.5. The 8-bit graphics and catchy chiptune music by Anamanaguchi add a lot to the nostalgic style of this game, and while the levels are playable and fun, they can still be very lengthy and frustrating. Design gets an 8.5. The old school interface and style really make this game aesthetically pleasing to any nerd who played games in the 90s. Presentation gets an 8. This game can be very frustrating, but I still can't get enough of the old school beat-em-up controls. Gameplay gets an 8.0. With fun gameplay, a level-up system, higher difficulties, and extra modes like Survival Horror and Boss Rush, this game is worth coming back to. Replay value gets an 8.5. Overall, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game on the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade, gets an 8.3.